There are moments in astronomy that spark wonder, moments that remind us of the vastness and beauty of the cosmos. And then there are discoveries that don't bring comfort at all, but instead ignite fear, unease, and questions we are not ready to face. One such discovery revolves around the mysterious interstellar object known as 3I Atlas. Unlike a comet or asteroid from within our solar system, 3I Atlas came from the dark between the stars, an intruder on a path that defies our normal understanding of celestial mechanics. At first, scientists treated it as another interstellar visitor, like Oumuamua or 2I Borisov, but what happened next changed everything. Because this time, the object didn't just pass silently. It emitted a signal that shook astronomers to their core. A signal that some now believe confirms what we all feared: we are not alone, and whatever is out there may already know about us. When 3I Atlas was first detected, astronomers were fascinated by its odd behavior. Unlike typical comets, its brightness fluctuated in strange patterns. It wasn't just outgassing from ice sublimating in the heat of the sun. The light curve showed a rhythm, a strange pulsation that didn't match any natural process we could easily model. At first, researchers assumed it was a tumbling object, spinning chaotically, exposing different reflective surfaces as it moved. But as telescopes around the world tracked it more closely, the story grew stranger. The periodic dimming and brightening wasn't random at all. It followed a mathematical sequence, almost like a beacon deliberately pulsing against the black backdrop of space. Radio telescopes were turned toward 3I Atlas, not out of expectation but out of caution. In most cases, these interstellar objects are silent travelers, offering nothing but reflected sunlight. But 3I Atlas was different. Amid the usual cosmic noise, a narrowband transmission was detected. At first, many dismissed it as interference, perhaps from satellites or ground-based equipment. But after repeated confirmations from observatories on different continents, the disturbing truth became undeniable. The object was emitting something structured, something artificial. The signal wasn't a simple tone or a random burst. It was patterned, pulses arranged in sequences that repeated at precise intervals, a kind of cosmic Morse code. The frightening part wasn't just the fact that it existed, but what it seemed to represent. Some astronomers noted that the intervals corresponded to prime numbers, a universal mathematical concept often theorized as the foundation of any first contact signal. Prime sequences don't occur in natural astrophysical phenomena. They are intentional, deliberate, and unmistakably artificial. That was the first confirmation that what humanity was dealing with wasn't just a rock or a comet. It was something more. As the data poured in, theories erupted. Was 3I Atlas a probe, some kind of autonomous machine dispatched across interstellar space to map and observe civilizations? Was it broadcasting back to its origin point, or had it been activated only when it neared our solar system? The unsettling detail is that the signal wasn't directed outward into the void, it was directed inward, toward Earth. Receivers registered that the beam was narrowly focused, almost as if the object had locked onto us. This was not a random emission bleeding into space. It was targeted. Governments and space agencies scrambled to control the flow of information. At first, only a handful of astronomers had access to the raw signal data, but leaks inevitably surfaced. What they revealed was chilling. Embedded in the pulses was more than just a sequence of primes. There were modulations, patterns that when visualized, formed structures resembling maps or diagrams. Some claimed they showed star configurations, possibly pointing to an origin system. Others argued they looked more like schematics, blueprints of something incomprehensible. Whatever the case, the complexity was beyond natural explanation. Skeptics, of course, pushed back. They argued that human bias was projecting meaning onto random noise. But that argument grew weaker as the signal repeated with consistency, its mathematical structure undeniable. Even the most cautious astronomers had to admit it. The probability of this being natural was effectively zero. Something intelligent was at work here. Something that knew how to speak across the void in a language that any scientifically advanced civilization would recognize: mathematics. And then came the most disturbing revelation. The pulse sequence, when analyzed over time, wasn't static. It evolved. It began to shift, as though responding to the very act of observation. Some scientists proposed that once our instruments locked onto it, the probe or object altered its transmission, adapting in real time. If true, it meant 3I Atlas wasn't just sending, it was listening. It was aware of us. The possibility that 3I Atlas was aware of us sent shockwaves through the scientific community. If it was listening, then it wasn't just a passive object passing through space. It was interactive, perhaps even programmed to activate when it encountered electromagnetic signatures like radio waves, which Earth has been broadcasting into the cosmos for over a century. That realization led to one terrifying conclusion: this encounter may not have been accidental. 3I Atlas could have been drawn here, guided by the signals humanity has been leaking into space since the early 20th century. The deeper scientists dug into the signal, the more disturbing the patterns became. Teams working in secret noticed a strange correlation between the pulse modulations and Earth-based transmissions. It was as if the object was echoing fragments of our own broadcasts back at us. Snippets of old television signals, radio chatter, even Morse code sequences used during wartime seemed to appear, faintly encoded within the carrier. The thought was chilling. This object wasn't just transmitting, it was recording, cataloging, and then replaying information humanity itself had sent into the void. The signal was a mirror, a reflection of our own voice coming back from an alien machine. If that was true, it confirmed what many had feared: we are under observation. Not in a distant, abstract sense, but directly, personally, in real time. Something out there has not only found us but is actively studying us, storing what it learns, and perhaps even reporting it elsewhere. It forced a question humanity was not prepared to answer: what happens when the watchers decide they've seen enough? Astronomers also noticed something else about the trajectory of 3I Atlas. Unlike natural interstellar objects, which should follow predictable hyperbolic paths dictated by gravity, Atlas's movement showed anomalies. Small course corrections, as though it was adjusting its trajectory. These were subtle but measurable. No natural body should behave this way. To make matters worse, its outbound path wasn't random. Instead of flying deeper into interstellar space after its perihelion, its projected course bent in a way that suggested intentional navigation toward the outer solar system, in the direction of Saturn and beyond. That deviation made no sense for a natural object, but for a probe under guidance, it was exactly what one might expect. By this stage, astronomers around the world were split into camps. One group insisted that what they were witnessing was nothing more than a misunderstood comet with odd outgassing effects and radio noise misinterpreted as intelligence. The other group argued that the evidence was overwhelming. Atlas was not a natural object, but a probe of alien origin. Governments leaned heavily into silence, suppressing official statements, but leaked documents from observatories hinted that internal consensus was forming. The official story may have been skepticism, but behind closed doors, no one could deny the mounting evidence of intelligence. Perhaps the most frightening element of all came when cryptographers attempted to break down the evolving pulse patterns. At first, they believed they were looking at a simple sequence of primes, but over time, the modulation revealed deeper structure. It wasn't just numbers anymore. It was a layered encoding system. Some researchers claimed that when mapped into 3 dimensions, the signal created shapes, geometric lattices that resembled molecular diagrams. Were these chemical blueprints? Instructions? Warnings? The interpretations varied, but the consensus was that this was intentional communication. Communication meant to be understood by any civilization advanced enough to decode it. And here lies the terrifying truth. If Atlas truly was a probe, it might not be the first one. It might not even be the only one currently watching us. What if Earth has been under long-term surveillance, our broadcasts and movements monitored by machines drifting in the dark? Atlas may only be the one we noticed, the one that made itself known. The others may be cloaked in silence, undetectable, waiting. The fear was not just about being observed, but about what comes next. The signal could be a status update, a notification sent back across the stars to its origin. In that case, it means that somewhere far away, Another intelligence now knows our exact location, our level of technology, and the state of our planet. It could mean contact is inevitable, not on our terms, but on theirs. Some even speculated that the object was not a scout at all but a test. A probe designed to measure how humanity would respond to an anomaly, to see whether we recognized the signal, whether we tried to respond, and how we handled the fear of the unknown. If so, then our behavior now might determine what happens next. Did we pass the test or fail it? The more the signal evolved, the more questions arose. And then, just when scientists were beginning to adapt to its presence, the pulses abruptly changed. The rhythm broke, replaced by a long continuous transmission unlike anything before. It lasted for several hours, a steady beam directed toward Earth, encoded with patterns no one could immediately decipher. It was like the probe had shifted gears, moving from a test to a message. What that message contained remains one of the most controversial mysteries in modern astronomy. When the long transmission ended, the silence it left behind was almost more unnerving than the signal itself. 4 days, teams of scientists, cryptographers, and mathematicians worked around the clock to make sense of what they had recorded. The data wasn't like anything seen before. It contained multiple layers of modulation, almost as if it were designed to be unlocked step by step, with deeper levels of information hidden beneath the surface. Some teams believed they managed to decode fragments, though their interpretations remained shrouded in secrecy. Leaks suggested that what they uncovered wasn't just abstract mathematics or universal constants, it contained references that struck far closer to home. One alleged interpretation was that the transmission carried a map, not of distant star systems, but of our own solar system, with Earth marked clearly. If true, then the signal wasn't just a call home. It was a confirmation, a beacon declaring, "We found them. They're here." Another interpretation claimed the diagrams resembled DNA structures, patterns eerily close to the blueprint of life itself. Was this a message comparing their biology to ours, or perhaps a way of cataloging us? Or worse, was it a warning about what they already knew of us? Some researchers even argued the final signal wasn't meant for us at all. They suggested it was outbound, directed not inward toward Earth but outward, as if updating a network, confirming to something far away that its mission was complete. That theory carries terrifying implications. If 3I Atlas was a probe, then it may not be operating alone. It may be one node in a vast interstellar web, a system designed to seek out civilizations and report their presence back to its creators. If that's true, then the transmission might have been nothing more than a status update. Earth discovered, technological, active, awaiting further instructions. 4 months after the event, astronomers monitored Atlas as it drifted away, its path bending unnaturally through the solar system. It never transmitted again. The silence was deafening. Some hoped that meant the event was over, that it was gone for good. Others feared the opposite, that silence meant it was finished with us, that its task was complete and whatever needed to be sent back had already been delivered. Now we are left only to wait for whatever comes next. This brings us to the most unsettling question of all. What happens when humanity is found? For decades, scientists have debated the risks of broadcasting our existence to the cosmos. Some argued that announcing ourselves was reckless, like shouting in a dark forest without knowing what lurks in the shadows. Others believed contact was inevitable, that any advanced civilization would already know we're here. But 3I Atlas changes everything. Because if this was a probe, then it means we didn't just announce ourselves. They were already searching, and now they've confirmed us. The fear is not irrational. History on Earth is full of encounters between civilizations at vastly different levels of technology, and those encounters rarely end well for the less advanced side. If something out there has the power to send autonomous machines across interstellar distances, then their technology is thousands, perhaps millions of years ahead of ours. To them, humanity would be fragile, vulnerable, and possibly expendable. That realization is why the scientific community is divided between those who want to reach out in peace and those who believe silence is our only defense. In the end, 3I Atlas left us with no answers, only fear, speculation, and the knowledge that something impossible crossed our skies and spoke in a language we could barely understand. Was it truly a probe? Was the signal an invitation, a warning, or a catalog entry in some vast alien archive? We may never know. But one truth is inescapable. For the first time in history, humanity faced a signal from the dark that did not come from nature. It came from intention. And intention implies intelligence. Now, as Atlas drifts silently into the outer reaches of our solar system, the question hangs heavy over us. Was this the first contact we always dreamed of, or the beginning of something we were never meant to survive? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain: the universe has noticed us. And it may already be deciding what comes next.